Hey everyone, it's Bethany from Beth and Books and welcome back to this book nook. We're going to ignore the wrinkly sleeves because I got this top out of my suitcase and don't have a steamer with me, but I wanted to wear it. Okay, now that that's out of the way, we're continuing on with the 5-star predictions and wrap-up series. I'll be completely level with you. I completely forgot I was even doing this series. So the last video for this was like over 12 months ago, but I have read the 5 books that I predicted were going to be 5 stars in episode 2. So what we're going to do is we're going to review those, and then I'm going to introduce the next 5 books that I think will be 5-star predictions. Not gonna lie, this was a pretty disappointing round of 5-star predictions with only one book reaching the predicted 5 stars. So we're going to start from lowest rating to highest rating, and we're going to get straight into it. Okay, let's start with Furibond by Claire Legrand. I do have my notes here, my apologies. Now, this was honestly just a fine book. I gave it 3 stars. I cannot remember anything about it, and past me did not help myself by just writing in the review section, review to come. I didn't write anything, and all I can remember is the feeling of I've read this book before. It's nothing new, it's just another YA fantasy with a romance subplot. I just really thought I was going to love it more because one of the things that got me hooked into the blurb was this idea that our main character had to go through a trial to prove who she was with like 7 different things. And like, it's no surprise to anyone that she does pretty well at them. So there wasn't any sort of air of will she, won't she, because she had very obvious plot armor. Also the fact that the romance was just like every other romance I feel like I've read in a YA fantasy was just really boring. And I've mentioned this before in recent videos. I just don't think that YA fantasy is really my go at the moment. I just need to give it a great big break until something really new and different comes out. So unfortunately for me, I'd still recommend this book, but it was not 5 stars. Now, Yoke is another 3 stars, which is obviously disappointing for me because Mary H.K. Choi wrote Emergency Contact, which I loved. I gave that book a 5 stars, which is why Yoke got on the predictions list. Now, this story, the blurb told me it was going to be about 2 sisters coming together in the face of grief. And that's what I felt like at the time. But when I picked it up, there was that. But there was so much other stuff going on, such as bulimia, hang on, I did write a review for this one, eating disorders, emotionally abusive relationships, wanting to have space from your parents, and cancer and illness, like general illness. And so it was one of those books where it felt like there was too much going on in the amount of pages that the author gave herself to write in. And so whilst we saw some of the sisterhoodness coming together, it was really just like, and then there's this problem, and then there's this problem, and then there's this disease, and then there's this issue, and then there's this mental illness, and it was a lot. So reading it, it really felt like, I hate to say this, I really do, but at times it felt a little bit like bad things for bad things' sake. It's like, oh, things aren't bad enough, here, have something else that's not a nice thing happening in your life. The next book I predicted would be 5 stars was Felix Ever After by Kaysen Calendar. Like, I need to be so upfront and aware with you guys. I haven't read many own voice trans novels. In fact, this might have been the only one off the top of my head that I can think of. So I definitely need to read more of them. And when I talked about this in a reading wrap-up, a vlog, in some sort of video, I had some really good comments, and I kind of just want to talk about that before I go into the review a little bit, because it's important to hear from, because I had a own voice trans person comment on the video, and they had a really good point with saying that they highly recommend trying to find a book with a happy trans character, because this book, the trans character Felix, he's not very happy, and so Lani was saying how if, especially as a cis person, you read a book from a trans perspective that's negative, it really makes you think that it's a negative experience, and that's not doing trans people justice at all. And I'm going to quote Lani here saying, "It's tough to swallow the only depictions trans people getting is suffering. It puts out the subtle message that the only way we should be seen is in pain." And I just want to put that out there because that's where I think I struggled with this book, is that it felt really sad. And whilst that's a super valid experience, I don't know, it just gave the novel this undertone of grief, which honestly I think I just wasn't prepared for. I thought this book was going to be a little bit happier. Like, I knew there were going to be challenges and struggles and obstacles for Felix to overcome, but I still thought there was going to be more of a hopeful undertone rather than a depressed undertone. Next up we have Red Rising by, who's the author? Pierce Brown, and I gave this one 4 stars. So I liked this book. It was kind of like Hunger Games, but on a more mature level, on a bigger scale, with, I was going to say more gruesomeness. Hunger Games is pretty gruesome. It's literal children killing each other. But it was more like, more intense. There were more people involved, more death, more murder, more like trigger warning for rape in the novel and sexual assault. So it's like mature, adult Hunger Games. What's that actually labelled as? Is it young adult or? See, it's written as young adult there. I don't know if I agree with that. It's quite intense. The only reason I didn't give this 5 stars is because at times it got really info dumpy. Like, there was just a lot of the world, because it's a 4-book series, so there's a lot in this world that you need to wrap your head around, and rather than introducing it to you slowly, or like introducing it to you at all, it was left and then dumped all on you a little bit later on, and it was just like, oh, it was really hard to wrap my head around. Once I wrapped my head around it, I loved it, but it did negatively impact my reading experience. Now let's go to the one book that was a 5-star prediction, and that is Challenger Deep by Neil Shusterman. Holy moly, what a great book. I literally bought this. Oh, I didn't buy it. Oh, I did buy it, but not my money, my English department's money at my old high school, as a book that I thought my colleagues should read because it'd be a real great class set for looking at mental illness and psychological elements of people. Like, it's so good. I can't tell you about it though, because if I give you any hint about the book, about why I necessarily liked it, it will ruin, I feel it will ruin the unraveling of the book. So just know this: if you like psychological books, if you like imaginative books, if you like to be able to piece things together, consider this. It was a masterpiece, world class. Okay, let's move on to the next 5 books I am predicting for my 5-star reads. I'm going to keep these really quick, do the summaries decently quick, because I don't want this video to go on forever. I will do my dang hardest to remember to link everything down below, so if you want more information on the books, please do that. So let's do it. First of all, Jeanette McCurdy's I'm Glad My Mum Died. I have been so intrigued by this ever since it came out. That title, the cover with her grinning with her mother's ashes. Like, I want to read this so much. So this is about Jeanette McCurdy, who you might recognise from shows. Oh, what was her big show? Why can I, hang on, I'm going to find her big show. What was the one she got famous for doing? iCarly. So this is a story of being a child star. Jeanette was 6 years old when her mother started auditioning her for shows and stuff like that, and all her mum wanted her to be was a big star, and Jeanette, wanting to please her mum, went along with it. But of course things were really toxic. Her mum forced her on diets as a child, weighed her 5 times a day, berated her for not having naturally dark lashes, like some intense stuff, whilst taking the wages that Jeanette was earning for herself. She was even being showered by her mother until she was 16. And like, I need to read this. I need to read this. I think it's going to be fascinating. I really do. Next up I have Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin, and this is an adult contemporary novel which has also got a little bit of romance in it from my understanding, and it's about 2 friends who ultimately knew each other in high school, come together, create a game, I believe it's a game, and by 25 they're super rich, famous, like wow, everything. However, like, things don't always work out. they've loved each other in the past, but they've never been lovers. There's tension between them. The book spans 30 years. I imagine it's a bit like Marie Lou's Warcross, but adult is how I guess I'm kind of picturing it in my head. I have seen this book absolutely everywhere. I have seen people I trust with their reviews online, like on Bookstagram and stuff, reviewing it and loving it. And that got me really intrigued. I happened to do a BuzzFeed quiz being like, what book should you read? And it came up with this book, so I put it on this list. Another book I've put on this list, mostly because I've seen really good reviews out and about on Bookstagram, is Cleopatra and Frankenstein. This is by Coco Mellers, and it was nominated for Best Fiction 2022 and the Best debut novel for 2022 as well. So it follows 24-year-old Cleo. She's a British painter who has escaped to New York. It is in New York that she meets Frank, who is 20 years older than her. They start a romance, they get married, everything moves extremely fast, and then nothing works out to plan. So they're, what's the word they use to describe them? Compulsively readable lives of Cleo and Frank, and an unforgettable cast of their closest friends and family as they grow up and grow older. It sounds like really, it's like a slice of life, really. Well, not really a slice of life, it's not just a section. You see them meet and then together, but you kind of see other people's slices of lives within it too. The next one on my list here is The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. This is a book I actually have bought and own. It's just over the ditch in New Zealand. Now, Kristen Hanna, her books are everywhere. She is so well known, so well loved, and this is the book that first got her on my radar. And honestly, this is on here because FOMO. Like, I saw this everywhere. I hear Kristen Hanna's name and see Kristen Hanna's name and her books all the time everywhere. She's extremely prolific, and so I want to read a book. And The Nightingale is the one that kind of interested me the most out of her newer releases. This one is France 1939, and it's set in the quiet village of Carrefour. Now, our main character is Vianne. She says goodbye to her husband as he heads to the front, so it's wartime. What happens though is a German, I don't know what the word is, requisitions. So a German captain requisitions our main character Vianne's home, and she is forced to live with the enemy basically. And in order to survive, you know, she has to be meek, she has to be subservient to these enemies who are killing her people, and she basically has to live with that. However, she has an 18-year-old sister who's a bit more rebellious, a bit more driven to act. The sister's called Isabel. Now here's the thing though, Isabel falls in love with one of the soldiers, a German soldier. I'm not too sure if it's a German soldier or like a Frenchman, but basically her love interest betrays Isabel, and then Isabel joins the resistance and never looks back, which makes me think it was a German she fell in love with, risking her life time and again to save others. So I'm kind of anticipating a bit of a dual perspective here, although it's not specified. But I really surprised myself with how much I have loved books like All the Light We Cannot See, The Book Thief. I've got a book in my head, but I can't remember what it's called. If I can remember, I'll pop it up here. Because I'm not into history. This is the weird thing. I don't have much interest of history. However, with those books, I really liked them. So maybe I should give historical reads more of a chance. I mean, I do know I am giving them more of a chance. The last one on here, I just had to put it in as a sequel. It's the only sequel, and this is The Mercenary Librarians Book 2 called The Devil You Know. This is by Kit Rocha. Let me tell you this. If you want a book about books, about a group of guys and a group of girls who are like enemies but come together, enemies to lovers, mercenaries, shooting, and smut, pick this up. It is such a good read. I read the first book cover to cover, 5 stars, absolutely loved it. Much like the Chloe Brown trilogy by Talia Hibbert, where each installment of the trilogy follows a different sister. In this trilogy, each installment follows a different one of the 3 girls from the main girl gang. It's just a really fun, fast-paced, intense book, kind of like a guilty pleasure read, and I absolutely loved it. So I really think I'll love the sequel as well. So those are my episode 2 5-star predictions, and I suppose this is episode 3 now. Episode 3 is wrapping up the past ones, and here are my new ones. I'm going to do my hardest to try vlog them when I get around to reading them. I might even make a dedicated reading my predictions vlog at some point. That would be quite fun, actually. Let me know if you have any 5-star predictions, or if you've read any of the books I have predicted or reviewed. Just let me know your thoughts on the books. See if you agree, if we disagree. I love these sort of conversations. We all have opinions. So enjoy all the places you go in your own reading adventures, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.